This segment of the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast is supported in part by Douglas Outdoors, serious rods for serious anglers. Go to douglasoutdoors.com and check out their new lineup of Era rods that retail under $100. Norsk Lithium, the lithium battery that you need is just a click away. Go to norsklithium.com and check out some of the lightest lithium batteries in the market with the best warranty in the business. Mariner Sales, located in the heart of the DFW Metroplex, Mariner Sales has the largest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories in North Texas. You can also shop online at marinersales.com. What's up, everyone? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. As always, it's your boy Armando. Today, we're going to have JR Mocaby, one of my favorite people in the kayak fishing community. Another great angler. He's been on my podcast like 2 or 3 times because, as you know, I try to support the local trails, West Texas, kayak fishing, Texas Bass Nation, North Texas, TXBL when it used to come out, when it used to have a trail. So, he's won a bunch of these tournaments, and he just won another one in West Texas. And he reached out to me and says, "Hey, guess what? I won." I'm like, no huge surprise to anybody out there. And I said, "Great, you have to come up to the podcast. We need to talk about it." So, but then I thought, as always, he's probably won it on a frog. So I was like, "Hey, why don't we need to see what we talk about. We don't want to talk about the same thing." He's like, "No, get this. I caught him on finesse fishing. Just practice completely changed the game, and I went with something that I've never done as far as tournament." And I'm like, great, that's going to be a great episode because then we can talk about that, like adapting. So when the bite is not what your strength is, how do you adapt? How do you change? How do you get comfortable being uncomfortable? And I know that sounds cliche, but that's what the episode's going to be about. But before we get started, again, like I said last week, I'm still on that diet. Please hold your applause. I've already lost like 13 pounds in 13 days. I'm super excited. So still no beer, still with this time it's a scotch, not a bourbon. I got the Tobermory scotch, 12 years old. I usually drink 15-year-old scotch. I know I'm bougie with it, but I really like this scotch, and this is what I'm drinking for another week. No beers yet. And some of you messaged me last week when I was talking about, how my diet changed and how kind of like I woke up with a cramp because whatever. So I appreciate the messages and the advice on this diet. So yeah, 13 pounds, man. I got another half a week to go, and my goal is to lose another maybe 10 pounds if I can. But yeah, no, if I feel so much better, like the amount of junk food that I've eaten over the last few years, and the fact that I have a motor in my kayak and now I don't pedal. I mean, I do pedal, but not as much as I used to. So yeah. Anyways, quick news on the Bass Kayak and Beers front. Next Monday is again the episode for the Advanced Kayak Angler, hosted by Daniel Perry. I'm going to be a guest on that episode, and so is Peter Hooser from My Chaotic Fishing. Both Peter and I, over this week, had a chance to fish the new kayak that is, for those that are at the Classic Expo, they're going to start, I guess, showing it off for the first time to the public. It's the Voya X Musa 128. I can't say anything about the kayak because, of course, I'm working with Mariner Sales, and they asked us not to talk about it until tomorrow when they release it. So after tonight, I'll have a video uploaded on my YouTube channel, kind of breaking it down. But so that's going to be on my YouTube channel. But on the podcast on Monday, Daniel, like I said, Peter and I are going to be guests on the Advanced Kayak Angler hosted by Daniel Perry, where we break down for like an hour and 30 minutes everything that we liked about the kayak. If you haven't heard about the Musa 128 from Voya X, be prepared to get your mind blown. This is gonna be, I think, next level. Like, we took a huge step in technology for kayak fishing, and I'm not exaggerating. Wait till you see what's coming out. It is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of stuff that I like. But again, I can't say anything until tomorrow. So check out my YouTube channel tomorrow. I'll probably have it out somewhere by 8 a.m. I still have to edit it. So hopefully finish editing tonight. And then check out the Advanced Kayak Angler episode on Monday. Peter Hooser is doing another YouTube video. His video is going to be a full breakdown. Like, that video, I'm assuming is going to be like 45 minutes, because he goes into detail of everything about the kayak. And again, you got to check it out. Whether it's my channel or some other content creator's channel that's reviewing it, just check it out. You're going to be pretty amazed by that kayak. But anyways, enough about that. Let's bring in our guest for today. That's what you guys are here for, Mr. JR Mocaby. How's it going, man?
Hey, going pretty well, Armando. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast, man. I don't even have to worry about if I'm going to have JR Mocaby again, because I'm sure you're going to win another tournament. Even if you don't, like, seriously, you're always welcome to come on this podcast, because you're always sharing with a lot of knowledge that we do appreciate. And I'm sure my listeners got a lot of feedback. I actually had somebody comment on the post that I did that you were coming on the show. They were looking forward to listening. So shout out to Oilfield Angler Fishing. Not missing this show. What's up, fellas? Thanks, buddy. Thanks for joining us today. And anyways, let's get started with this, JR. So you won a tournament with doing something that you've never done before. Like,
Well,
start with that. Or not, maybe you never done before, but it's not in your wheelhouse.
right, absolutely. So with the shaky head, that particular bait, that's my finesse bait, and that's kind of what I got confidence in as far as finesse fishing goes. Like, I don't really get outside the box a whole lot, so drop shots, Ned rigs, all that stuff I don't throw at all. If I have to resort to finesse, I just pick up that shaky head, and we'll go into depth and break it down. But I've actually had a lot of success on that bait, and that's kind of what I fall back on when fishing conditions are tough, or the fish are a little bit more pressured, or something in that kind of situation.
What was it about? First of all, Amistad, which is another, legendary lake. I know. But how's the water level? Because I know for a few years, the water level has been really low, but it's still an
Yeah.
amazing fishery.
Yeah, it's still surprisingly a big lake, a lot of water, but yeah, it's really low. I think maybe 60 foot. I could be totally wrong, but I think I heard that from somebody. But yeah, it's still a big lake, and we were only able to fish the U.S. side, and yeah, it was for the West Texas kayak fishing season opener down there. So, and that was actually my first time ever on the lake, never had been. So it was a real cool experience from start to finish to kind of see everything.
That's it. Did you get to pre-fish it?
So I got to pre-fish the Friday right before the tournament. So, and that's always can be a double-edged sword as far as hooking fish and kind of, testing the waters with certain size in certain areas. But I felt like, during the pre-fishing day, I gradually got better and had more bites, and the kind of this I was spot jumping. I wasn't really just sitting there hammering fish in one particular area. I just wanted to have a couple areas that I could run to throughout the day when things got a little slow in some areas, and just have some backup plans. But I found plenty of fish in a couple different areas, and I was able to just kind of do a milk run per se, and hit those areas and really, really hone in on what they were doing and what they were biting on. But yeah, it was really cool to kind of, get there and see Amistad for the first time. Super clear water lake, super bluffy cliffs, real scenery. The scenery was absolutely stunning. I mean, that's probably one of the most beautiful lakes I've ever been on. But yeah, it was cool.
So for those that don't know, Lake Amistad is at the border, right, between Mexico and United States. I think, doesn't the Devil's River feed that lake, or vice
Yes.
versa?
Yeah, it's right there in Del Rio, Texas, right on the border, but the Devil's River feeds it. Yes.
Have you ever fished the Devil's River? I always see John B and some of the content creators kind of like go over those, and I've always been intrigued to go out there and fish it.
I've never been out there, no. And there has been opportunities for me to, and just things haven't worked out. It's a big commitment, and things got to be right as far as conditions, and you got to be over prepared and stuff like that. So it just hasn't worked out yet.
Hey, let's make a plan, man. Let's do a
Yeah,
date here.
be
Let's
a trip.
yeah, I really always wanted to go there. I know I heard it's kind of like tricky with the private land thing, and a lot of people kind of crossing over illegally and stuff like
Hmm.
that. Not to get into social political, just the facts. And a lot of farmers is very defensive about it. So it's like really tricky where you're gonna stay if you're gonna go camping. So they always say get a guide, don't go by yourself. You've never been there. So it's interesting. I would love to either get a guide or at least find out how to do it and do it because I think it's amazing. So Lake Amistad, I've never fished it. You mentioned, is there any grass on it? Because I know you thrive on our grassy lakes for the most part.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of grass on the lake. I actually never found any grass where I was at particularly. So I was up the river. I launched at a launch called Rough Canyon. And when I got up there, it was just complete rock. That's all that we were fishing, rock and timber. But if you went down more towards the south end of the lake, the main part of the lake, there was a bunch of grass in certain areas. Some other competitors did really well down there in the grass. So I know that opportunity was there, but I actually never seen any grass where I was up the river.
Was it tough to like practice for you? Was it tough adjusting just to a new body of water?
When I got there, I did kind of my research prior, so I knew what kind of roughly to expect. And honestly, when I got there, the fish were kind of just active and biting, in the first couple of spots that I was hitting. So I just kind of honed in on those certain baits and techniques that were allowing me to get some bites and kind of hit some really high percentage areas based on like, the seasonal patterns that are going on right now, especially down there.
Mhm.
A little bit warmer. I know we had like 80 to 90-degree temps that week leading up to it. So that really moves things along really quickly. And, it was, an adjustment, but like I said, I made the adjustment quick, so it wasn't too bad figuring out kind of what they were doing.
By the way, I'm sharing the screen. Don't get nervous. I'm not asking you for waypoints.
Oh, I don't mind at all. I'll just, this isn't
I'm
a
not
home
gonna
lake
ask
by
you
any
for
means,
waypoints.
so
So, so on practice, were
Mhm.
you able to figure out something that would kind of led into day one of, well, it's only 1 day tournament, but into the tournament that you felt like, all right, either how practice goes, either you're canceling water or you're knowing where you're gonna go. So what was it for you like after pre-fishing day one? Were you like, all right, this is where I'm going or this is where I'm not going kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I honestly during pre-fishing, I found a couple solid areas that I knew that I could kind of bounce back and forth between throughout the day and get productive bites. I was more concerned about the size of fish because if you look at the leaderboard, especially in the prior years of this tournament, because it's an annual deal for West Texas. At least the last 3 years, I believe they went to Amistad for their opener. Well, a lot of the fish are like, anywhere from 12 to 15 inches, 16 inches, so it's hard to get on the quality of fish versus the quantity of fish. And that's kind of what sets you apart on this particular lake and, our situation. But, so early into pre-fishing, I started, with, an A rig, and that's kind of what I started getting some bites on the steep bluffs, the really big drop offs, and kind of going into spawning areas, pockets, if you will, because I felt like that would be a good highway, place to start. Even if they've already been spawning, well, they're going to have to use that way to get back out towards the channels and stuff, and vice versa coming in for the spawn. So I knew that there would be at least some population of fish in those areas. And I picked up that A rig first cast. I caught a keeper on it, and then I go down the bluff a little bit further down, maybe 100 yards or so, and I get another bite really quickly. And I'm like, oh, okay, this might be something I could run with, in this clear water, and especially with windy situation like that, just that creates a good bite for that A rig if you can, get on it. And I did that for a while, and that kind of slowed up as the sun got high when conditions were a little bit more visible, especially for those fish. And I started having to drag for them, so I picked up that spinning rod, and I was using a little 1/8 ounce shaky head, and I was just letting it fall all the way to the bottom and just kind of, just dragging it back super slow, counting rocks essentially. And you'd feel that tick, and it was a really, it was more so like an aggressive bite, and it was a really consistent bite. So like I would go down a bluff and I would get 3 or 4 bites, and I maybe set the hook on the first one just to kind of test the waters and see, and then I just kind of shake off a couple more during pre-fishing just to make sure I can serve those areas properly. And then I would try to duplicate it on other bluffs or other parts of the lake in case I had to, like, have some more air. Maybe someone else found the same thing. I have some other stuff in the back pocket that I can resort to. Um, so yeah, it wasn't really too hard to get bites during pre-fish, and I was just like, more so worried about the size of fish. I knew that I could go get bit in certain areas. I just knew I needed to get, those 17 to 19, 20-inch fish to set you apart.
Man, that's so interesting. I have so many questions that are popping up in my mind as you're talking. So
Mhm,
I have to stay focused. Let's start with location. So on this lake, it's obviously, in the border between United States and Mexico. So it's really like down south.
mhm.
What phase of the spawning do you feel like the fish were? Are we talking like, bedding, male garters, post spawn? Like how far into the spawn were they?
I still feel like the majority of the population of fish were still pre-spawn based on where they were
Pre-spawn.
setting up.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's honestly what I thought. What I thought, based on the fish that I was catching in the area that I was at on the lake up north. Now, that could have been different down south when you have those shallow flats, those shallow bays.
Mm.
Potentially more opportunity down there for a quicker spawn to start versus up north, where, like I said, most of my banks were really steep and really there wasn't a lot of areas for them to spawn unless they started moving back up in the creeks. And I just never really got bit at the back of the creeks. I tried it, because that's like my wheelhouse, up shallow, going back and fish in those areas, but I wasn't getting bites. I had to come out towards the points, the secondary points, and then the main lake stuff to get bit. So that kind of told me, ooh, they're not as far along as I predicted, based on where we're at in the country right now, and I think they were more so pre-spawn.
What were the water temperatures, if you remember?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they were like maybe 63 to 65 when I got there, and they got
Huh.
up to mid to upper 60s by the end of the trip. Like I said, we had some 70 to almost 90-degree days during that week leading up to the tournament. And I know that rocketed up that water temp.
That's interesting
So
because that was like prime temperatures for
yeah,
spawning.
prime. That's
Um,
what I thought.
so were you fishing when you say up north? And again, I'm not asking for waypoints, and you can
Mhm.
decline answering if you will. Like totally respect that. But were you fishing when you say up north? Were you fishing more like river or main lakes?
Yeah, so I was way up the river. Like if you look up there on that map, you see that ramp right there midway. That's called Rough Canyon, and that's where I launched. And I actually started coming down more towards the main lake, and then I ended up going up towards the river. So I had areas that were productive on both sides of that ramp, and you could see all those little cutbacks and creeks, and all those places had water. But and honestly, they could have been spawning back there, but maybe they were just a little deeper because that water's clear, and those fish will naturally get a little deeper if they can do that and feel more comfortable spawning. A lot of times in these shallow fisheries or muddy or dirty waters, they have to get up real shallow to get that sunlight and stuff because the water's not as clear. But in this particular body of water, I don't know what visibility was. It was really clear, especially at the back of these pockets, and I just never seen any beds or any fish. Now they could have been deeper, and I just didn't see them. But I
I
never seen any spawning fish.
My experience, and I not where near the level or experience that you had, but my experience pre-fishing on very clear lakes, I hate it. Not that I hate it, but it's not my favorite area because I feel like they're really a lot finickier than a kind of like typical grass lake that has some like maybe stained waters and all that. But like those, like for example, Whitney Lake, like I fish tournaments like prime um spawning time. But those fish can, I mean, the water is so clear, like you can get 20 feet visibility. Most of them, like I feel like the bigger ones are spawning like 5 feet or deeper. I feel like the smaller ones, maybe because the bigger bass get to pick the lion's share, like the prime spots, because they're bigger, they can bully their way. My theory, I'm not a marine biologist, I could completely wrong. It's just my gut feeling tells me that, because when I do find beds, they're usually like not that big. They are like a couple of like female and male, but they're really not that big. They're more like juvenile bass.
Hmm.
Whereas um I feel like the bigger ones are a little bit deeper and they can see you way before you can see them. In your experience, what is easier for you, like on a spawning during spawning? Shallow, like muddier stained water, or like clear water reservoir like Amistad?
If I was gonna, target them, I would like somewhere in the middle, somewhere where you have a little bit of visibility, but somewhere that you can kind of still get up there near them without spooking them super easy. The Clearwater situation, I wouldn't want to particularly try to catch spawning fish, especially in a tournament. I think they're a little too smart, a little too pressured for that. Now,
No.
granted, you could see a little bit better, but you're going to also have to get a little bit further away because they can see you too. So I wouldn't want to really sight fish in super clear water around spawning fish. I would rather not see them at all. If I had it my way, I would rather have like somewhere in the middle. That way I could kind of see maybe a bed, maybe a dark spot, but I can also see my bait a little bit based on the color of baits, and still not be super close but not super far, and it just creates a better situation. So like somewhere that comes to mind is like Lake LBJ. If you've been there,
Yeah.
it's not super clear, but it's not
Yeah.
super dirty. Maybe 4 foot of visibility in some areas, and that's like great for spawning.
Yeah, I totally. My sister loves going there, but like for partying, not for like
Hmm.
fishing. So every time we go down over there, she takes a boat and we go to LBJ. It's pretty nice. I love it,
Yeah.
especially upriver. Has a
Yep.
little bunch of little like islands in the river. You can kind of like anchor in and have fun,
Yep.
party a lot. So fun lake. Not necessarily for fishing, but fun lake either way. When for this, why do you think your theory as to why the bite was so like what was affecting the fish, or not maybe affecting, but influences the fish, that they were more into the slow, methodical, um, finesse fishing style than the typical like chasing bait and hammering top water or jackhammers or spinner baits kind of thing?
So I still think that opportunity was there, but like once I got stuck on that, a certain couple techniques, I didn't want to get too crazy with it because, for one, I was in unfamiliar waters. Two, I'm not particularly, I wouldn't say comfortable with the clear water, but I wouldn't prefer it if it was my way. But so knowing that, I was like, man, I know these baits are working. There's no sense in trying other things. Let's just stick with this. Now, I did catch them on a chatterbait here and there, so I know that the reaction bite was there in the Alabama rig. Obviously, I caught them on two, so there was a reaction bite. But for me, that really steady, consistent bite was just dragging that worm. And I think really, maybe why it was like that is because the clear water, especially when the sun gets high and they have really good visibility, it's hard to get those fish to kind of chase those bold, bladed baits. Sometimes you really want like cloudy, windy conditions, something to stir up that water surface. Um, but I think it just, kind of like I said, the mixture between the clear water conditions and the high bluebird skies we had, especially during pre-fishing, and then as the day progressed on tournament day, it just presented that situation out there.
What let's break down the baits. Do you have a particular shaky head that you love, and if you do, what is it about that you like?
Yeah, so I've always had luck with the Sandtone piglet. Now, unfortunately, I don't think they still make it. Basically, it's a little round head. Actually, I got it right here. I was prepared, so
There you
let me,
go. I love when
yeah,
the guests are prepared.
yeah, exactly. So this is just a little round head. This is an 1/8 ounce, shaky head with a zoom trick worm, about as basic as you could get. Nothing crazy, nothing elaborate, but this is a fish catcher, and this is the standard trick worm, and black. And most people are thinking, well, black on clear water doesn't really meet the textbook, but black will get you bit in every
Yeah.
water condition. It just does. Even from 10 to 20 foot visibility all the way down to 1 foot or inches of visibility, black gets you bit. So I run with that, but that's just the style. It's just a little round-headed jig head, and like I said, I don't think they make this anymore. Unfortunately, they make a different style. Like it's almost like a football head now, and I have not experimented with that one because I've overstocked on these so much before they went out, and I've got an abundance of them still. So this is what I've been using, but that was the deal. And I'll tell you one key adjustment I made from pre-fishing to tournament day, and it was the most crucial by far, is so on pre-fishing day when I was hooking up with some of these fish, I was breaking off. And I was using, so I use 15-pound smackdown braid, and then that's my main line. And then I run a 12-pound fluoro leader. Well, I stuck with that because I was thinking, clear water, Lake Amistad, I don't want to go nothing too heavy, and then present the fish being able to see it a little better. So I used 12 and I was breaking off the day before on a couple fish, especially if they were getting me wrapped and they were like bulldogging me. It was just like saw and break. So I was like, man, I can't have that happening. And I got to looking at my box and all over my kayak to see what I had. And I only had that 12-pound or 20-pound fluoro. So I was like, the 20-pound is going to present a challenge because it's going to be harder to cast. It's not going to go through the small guides on its spinning rod as well. Most people are using thinner lines, smaller line diameters for this stuff. And so I knew there's going to be a couple challenges, but I felt like I could adjust. And so I tied on a 20-pound fluoro leader for tournament day. And man, that was the best decision. I never felt like I got less bites. And every fish that I hooked up with, I caught. And it was definitely a 20 to 30 fish day. Like I caught between 20 to 30 fish, and maybe one of them or two of them was on the A rig in the morning, and then the rest were on that shaky head. And I think I retied one time that whole day. And just because I felt so comfortable with it. Now, you're thinking, well, that's probably not smart. And it might not be. I was probably gambling, but I knew with that 20-pound, I could really horse them, fight them, and not have to worry about it. And it worked out. That was the biggest adjustment. I never broke off like I was the day prior, and I landed keyfish.
That's interesting when you mentioned about the black trick worm. By the way, Zoom I think makes the like my opinion, like my confidence. I'm not saying compared because I know there's always tribalism in like, oh no, this bait works, but whatever. I
Mhm.
just feel comfortable, more confident with the trick worm from Zoom. I don't know why. Like on a shaky head on the Ozark rig by forgot the name of the company, Core Tackle. It
Mhm.
just has a lot of movement in it. My experience, again, I'm sure there's other great trick worms out there and floating worms that you can use. But I think the biggest misconception that I find is that people think that black or black and blue or June bug colors are only like for like grassy, dark, muddy lakes. That's to me, that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Like the amount of times that I've caught like fish, betting or not betting, on a clear lake like Lake Whitney or Possum Kingdom on a black and blue jackhammer or black and blue jig or black and blue Senko. It's amazing. And I
Mhm.
think I don't know why always people think like, oh, you gotta throw something more natural because they can see it better. I don't think they care that much. Like I honestly think dark colors actually work better on clear water because it creates more contrast.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, and I've tested it like everywhere I go, I usually start with black and blue, and that's usually what I stick with. And the like my mindset behind it is, well, most critters, most little bugs, most, things like that are black of some sort or brown. And if they're around the water's edge, they're getting in the water, well, it would kind of mimic those things. So black's just always worked. It doesn't matter what kind of water clarity there is. I always stick with black, and there's no need to throw anything else, that from my experience. So
Pretty cool. Leaders, do you go with Alberto knot or an FG knot?
yeah, I go with Alberto. Now I used to tie the FG, but it's a pain in the butt to tie
I
out there,
know.
especially in windy conditions. So I've just stuck with the Alberto, and it's much easier to manage out there. And I can still get it through the guides. It's a little bit bigger knot than the FG, but I haven't had any issues with breaking off on the leader, nothing like that. So I'll just stick with it.
Yeah, I've gotten better with the Alberto knot as far as not coming off. Like there was one tournament I still got in the money, but I could have leapfrog a couple of people. I lost a big smallmouth bass in the Lone Star Throwdown in Belton. I think it was the first time we had it in Belton. Um, on a whopper plopper, I had a smallmouth bass just come up
Mm,
and destroy it, and that Alberto knot just gave out on me. So I've gotten better at it. At it, I know a lot of anglers. They tell me they'll do the FG knot at home or in the Airbnb because they have time and the patience. But once they're
hmm.
on the water and they have to retie, if they have to retie their leader, it's going to be an Alberto knot. Because,
Yeah,
like you said, it's so hard to try to just, I mean, some people are just used to it. But for me, I can't do an FG knot when I'm on the water. I just
yeah.
can't. I
I'm just
tried.
not as efficient with it, so I've just always did the Alberto now, for several years. And I used to try that out there, and it just took up too much time. And then you're in a kayak and you're floating around, and I've always stuck with that Alberto since the last several years, and I've never looked back. Just that's what I'll do.
Do you know who ties the best Alberto knot? Rolando Nandin, man. Like we were fishing
Oh,
at a tournament. He was
yeah,
so proud. He's like, look at this. And it's like, seriously, can't even tell when it moved from like I can't even tell where the knot is. Like he will
right.
do a
That's not surprising.
amazing Alberto knot. Like you can't even tell. Like you'll
Yeah.
notice where it goes from fluoro to braid, but still, man, he does an amazing Alberto knot.
And shout out to Rolando, by the way. He just won Texas Bass Nation
I
in
know.
Casa Canyon.
Another great angler that adjusts. Brandon. Well, Brandon can say this. Once you go black, you know. Well, you can say
Hmm.
it. We can't.
Yep.
But yes. Okay. So moving on. Thanks for that, Brandon. Um, what's when you okay? So on a shaky head, what's your preference as far as I know you're with Kistler rod, but with
Mhm.
Kistler rods, what length, what action, what strength do you like on your rod?
So the particular rod I'm using is a 7 2 foot medium fast. And I used to use a 7 foot medium for that kind of application like Cincos and shaky heads, but I recently bought this rod within the last year, and it's got a little bit more length to it, so it helps with the casting ability. So I can actually feel like I get a little bit more distance out of it, and then also it allows me to pick up line too on the hook set, which is so important because you're using a flimsier rod or a slower action rod with the spinning rod, so you want something that's going to be kind of instant. Well, the braid also helps you as well. So with the braid, that little bit longer rod, a little bit longer tip to pick up that line helps, with the hook set and penetrating their mouth, and the ratio land to hook ratio is a lot better. So
I leaped over something that I wanted to say. Um, typically anglers will say, well, if you're in clear water, go with the lightest line that you can. Two theories: the fish get line shy, or a lighter line gives you a little bit more action. You caught them, you won a tournament using a 20-pound leader. Do you
mhm.
do you think there's such a thing as you need to go lighter on the clear lakes with your fluorocarbon leaders?
I do think yeah, I think there's a time and a place for that. We had a bunch of wind that day, and really a lot of cloud cover for most of the day, so that really helped with the bigger leader. Now, if it was like bluebird and slick, calm conditions, I probably wouldn't have got as many as bites. Still feel like I would have got some bites, but I don't think I would have got nowhere near as many. But that's just those conditions. I was able to kind of get away with a little bit bigger leader based on the cloudy and windy conditions.
Do you think it's because it's line shy, or it's just because with the wind that gives action where kind of compensates for the lack of action of a bigger line?
I think, yeah, I think they just would be able to see it better with how clear the water was, and if you have a real bluebird sky with no wind, I think that 20 pound almost would be kind of cutting it, as far as whether or not they can see it or at least, sense it a lot better. Then I'd probably drop down to at most 15, or like I said, go back to 12 and just kind of not wrench on them. That's my thing is I really set the hook to probably pretty hard, with the spinning rod compared to some people. But I feel like I just when I'm out there and it's a far cast, you kind of want to set on them to really land that hook. So, but yeah, that's kind of what my experience has been through that.
You go like Guy Walter setting a hook.
Right? Yeah, I got to watch myself. I got to tell myself a lot easier, not as hard.
By the way, is that water or are we talking moonshine here? Because I know
No,
it looks like moonshine.
no, it's water. It's
All right.
water. Good old
Hey, no
fashioned
judgment,
H2O,
man.
just hydrating. Yep.
Hydrating after a lot of work. Um. Oh, almost forgot. Oilfield angler Rob asks, "What rod and reel combo?" You already talked about the rod. So what rod? So what reel do you use to go with your shaky head?
Yeah, so going back to the rod in case anyone missed it, 7.2 medium fast action rod. This is particularly the Kistler magnesium rod. And then also I use a 2500 series Stratic, Shimano Stratic. Um, you could get away with a 3000. You could probably go down a little bit less, but I feel like this is a good size to manage, especially on a kayak. And that's where I've had a lot of success with that particular combo. Catch a lot of fish on it.
What's the speed ratio on your reel?
On the reel, what is this? I'm not even sure. Let me see here.
So
Let's
it doesn't
see.
matter. Yeah,
Yeah,
the point
it
was it
works.
a preference for it?
Yeah, it's not even saying on here, so I'm not sure to be honest.
I think when you talk about finesse fishing, right? Like if you're gonna, I don't think the real speed matters as far as getting a bite. I think the real speed matters for trying to catch up to the fish. That's the only thing. Like, right, you're a stationary bait. Like you're throwing a shaky head.
Hmm.
You don't need to reel it fast unless you get a
Yeah,
bite and you're trying to get out of the brush piles or out of the standing timbers. Then that's maybe where the speed of the reel comes in. But it's not like you're throwing a buzzbait, right? Or that you need a high speed reel or a crankbait, a deep diving crankbait where you don't want to wear yourself out through. So you go with the lower speed reel. This one is just basically it's like how fast you want to get it to the boat, I guess.
exactly. And also like with a spinning rod, most people are playing those fish out and letting them fight. So
Yeah.
you're not really like sitting there trying to wrench on them. Now, there are situations where they would run at you after the bite, and then you'd have to kind of pick up some line pretty quickly. But for the most part, you're really going to play those fish out, and you're not going to be able to horse them in because most of the time people are using 8, 10, 12 pound, leaders. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the real speed doesn't matter as much with a spinning reel versus a bait caster.
And I would even argue like the high speed reel on a finesse style fishing is actually counterproductive because I think when we talk about high speed reels, I think a lot of people think like, okay, I can get it closer to the boat, and that's true. Like if I'm fishing on a cattle and I'm flipping grass or punching grass, then yeah, I want a high speed reel. If I'm throwing the top water, I need to get them out before they can get wrapped around the grass. That is absolutely true. But when you're talking about a finesse style, like you mentioned, you gotta like play it. You can't really horse it. Really, a low gear, lower speed gives you for the most part more torque, right? So I've said this on the podcast before, and so people that have already heard me say this a few times, I apologize, but for everybody that's listening, I've never heard this aspect of like real gear ratio. Yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. It's like when you have a lower gear ratio, you typically have more torque. So it's like comparing a Corvette to a GMC truck, right? Like one is going to go faster, but the other one is going to pull better,
Hmm.
slower, but more efficient. So when you're thinking about, all right, I got a light setup and I got 7 or 8 pound bass, you're not gonna. I mean, a high speed reel is not gonna help. It's gonna be
No, it's
counterproductive in that aspect.
it's it's going to hurt you. Yeah, for sure. They're going to be able to manhandle you. You're going to have to really wait till they tire out because you're not going to have the torque to pull them through that cover.
Yeah, agree. Um, so going into tournament day, were you like going like when you say bluffs? You said you mentioned we're fishing bluff. I think of bluff. I think of Ray Roberts. I think of Lake Whitney. I think of Possum Kingdom, where if I'm throwing like a finesse, I'm just letting it drop and it'll drop like 20 feet and all that. But you were fishing in 1/8 of an ounce. So I'm assuming you were picking them up shallow. Like when we're talking about bluff holes, are we talking like really deep or are they catching it on the fall? What was the scenario there?
Yeah, so it depended on what area I was at, but like those bluff walls, they were really steep and they were pretty deep in some areas. So like I seen anywhere from 20 to 30 foot right off the bank, like literally right off the bank. And some of the areas have a couple flats or like if you would like a couple step downs, if you would picture, when the water's out of water, how it kind of gradually gets deeper. Well, there was a couple areas that they would kind of taper off and flatten out, and I would be catching them in like 10 to 12 foot, so um, it just depended on where I was at. But like most of those fish I caught anywhere from like 8 to 12 foot of water on the bottom. It seemed like I had to start dragging it on the bottom for me to start getting those bites. I didn't really get them on the fall. Maybe someone did out there, but most of my bites were just coming as I was counting the rocks, just filling those little rocks down there and just barely picking out up that slack and kind of letting the wind current almost dictate where that bait would go, just make it a little more natural. And I was just kind of applying pressure just so I could feel the bottom contact in case something picked it up, and you'd feel them, hit it real hard, and then it would kind of start swimming off towards the channel.
Interesting. That's pretty cool, man. When we're talking about tournament day, so was the bite fast and early, or was it more spread out during the day, little by little, until you got your limit? How was it?
So in the morning, the bite was pretty good. I had my limit by in the first hour. But it was a very small limit. It was like 60, maybe 68, 69 inches. So they were all really small fish. I knew I had to, pretty much get rid of all of them. And so after I've hit my first main bluff, which was right on the point of a major creek arm. So I started right there. I thought that was a good high percentage area. Caught a couple of small keepers on the A rig, but like got my limit pretty fairly quickly. And then once I hit I had another bluff on the opposite direction. So I would actually be going back towards the ramp, past the ramp, up about a mile to a mile and a half to a certain bluff. And it was the only bluff that I could find bigger fish on. So the day prior, I caught an 18 off of one of those bluffs and two 17s. And I was like, oh, I got to get the heck out of here because these are quality fish that's going to set me apart from these other, 13, 14-inch fish that I was catching. So I left it alone. And then I came back during the middle of the day to that spot and I hit it really, really good, really methodically. And I came across these two boulders, like two big old boulders, and there was this like little gully right in between them that had some
Mm.
water in it. And I was like, let me just throw in there. So I literally pitched my shaky head in there, and I was like, man, if something's in there, it's going to be like a little rat, way back up in there. I throw it in there, I let it fall to the bottom, and as soon as it hits the bottom, I feel a tick, and I'm like, no way. So I go down to reel up, set the hook, and immediately that fish starts ripping, drag, and going out towards the channel under my boat. And I'm like, because I was like right next to these boulders. So as soon as that fish took off towards deeper water, I was like, oh, this is a catfish. I haven't felt a fish like this the whole trip. And I'm thinking, oh, this is the catfish. And I see it come up and I'm fighting and I'm just applying pressure. It comes up by the boat and I see the flash. And I'm like, oh, wow. My vibes changed completely. Like now I'm in a little bit panic mode because it's a huge fish, huge bass. And I seen it and I'm fighting it and I'm trying to go for that net prematurely because I don't want to
Oh,
be in a situation where, it's up next to the boat and I don't have the net ready. So I was trying to do that, and I got her up to the boat the first time, and she immediately ran back down, started ripping drag. So I was like, oh, she's not ready, but any minute she's gonna pop off, any minute. And I thought when I seen the fish, it was 10 pounds. That's how big this fish was, just full of eggs and just fat fish. And actually, the fish ended up having a little bit of blood on the tail too. And I finally tired this fish out, and I net it, and it ends up being 9 pounds on the nose, and that's a 23 3/4 inch fish, that was on the spinning rod that I thought a little rat was going to be up in that boulder. And so that was a really cool highlight catch of the whole trip, catching that 9 pounder, which was big bass as well. And I kept going down this bluff, and like literally maybe 5 to 10 minutes after that, I catch a 17. And I'm like, oh, okay, now we're in a different, situation here because that one fish at the time when I caught that one was a 13-inch fish. So that was right there was a 10-inch cull. And I did not post that. I played a little gamesmanship because I didn't want these boys fishing any harder than they already were. So I was like, let me hold on to this fish. And a little funny side story, me and my brother, we had a little bet during this tournament that the loser has to wear a stash at the next tournament. Well, I was more so worried about rocking a stash at the next trip, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I got to catch the fish because he was leading most of the day. His name's Luke Robertson. He's my half brother. And he was leading for most of the day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I might have to rock a stash, at the next tournament. I haven't shaved in like 10 years. I don't even know what I look like. So I was a little worried about that more so than the
What about the
fishing.
most ginger Jesus here?
Who knows, man? And so I ended up catching that 17, and I was like, oh, I'll post that one. And then I go literally a couple, maybe 20 to 30 yards down this same bluff, and I catch another 17. And I'm like, oh, dude, and now it's really going down. I know I'm above 90 inches. I'm sitting really well for Amistad's based on what it's fishing like. And a lot of people that I ran into in the day were stuck on 12 to 14-inch fish. So I felt really comfortable where I was at, and it just started chipping away. And then I think I ended up with 94 on the nose, and
Yep.
my smalls was like 17 something. Yeah, it's right there. So it was a super good day, and I was able to cool all those fish on that shaky head worm on that spinning rod with that 20-pound fluoro leader, which was really cool, really special.
So his half brother's ready. Luke, was it right?
Yeah, Luke Robertson. Yep.
Luke, is he ready to rock the stash then?
He'll be rocking the stash at OH Ivy in May for the double dip for Texas Bass Nation of West Texas.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't got to
Man,
rock the stash.
I'm sure you're happy about that.
Oh yeah, my wife is especially.
I saw a post the other day that man's beard are like the push-up bra for men. It was funny. My wife sent it to me. I don't know if I should be funny or insulted, but anyways, it's funny. Man, let me tell you something. First of all, you blew away the competition. It's like second place is 89 and a quarter. So you beat them like 4 1/4. That is not easy to do. That's pretty dominant. And also, first out of 62 anglers, which is nothing to sneeze about. And at least 40 of them caught. Well, no, actually, 39 of them caught a limit because Richard Mott actually only got 4, but 3 of them were pretty big, while Cole Danaher, who ended up 40, actually caught 5, but they were all tinks. So 66 inches. Yeah.
A lot of fish caught. They were definitely biting, and that's kind of what kept me going. Like, I know these fish are biting right now. I got to keep putting my head down and grinding it out. And the conditions got a little sketchy too, with that wind rolling in there, but it also made the bite a little better as well.
Do you feel like I've had this conversation recently on a podcast. We call it the burden of knowledge, right? Like, if you know the lake, sometimes you're fishing to your history, whereas not to condition. Like, oh yeah, they always get bites here, but when you're near to the lake, you're not fishing history because you don't have any history on the lake. You're fishing based on applying knowledge, like wisdom, right? Like, this is the weather conditions, this is the water clarity, this is the time of the season. I'm going to do this, versus somebody that fishes all the time. It's like, oh, I'm going to go here because that's where I always catch him. And usually it turns out so many times that the person who's only fished it once in his life actually ends up winning the tournament or higher on the leaderboard than the people that actually fish it all day. Do you think there's something to that?
I do. Yeah. I mean, you're able to go in with a clear conscience and a clear mind and just really fish the conditions, and if you're willing to adapt, and listen to the fish and, what the lake's doing right now, you can definitely be successful. There are times where you're exactly right. Like, where the home lake, it's kind of it could be a really tough tournament, and it can bite you because you have all these spots in your mind and you don't really know where to start, where to go, because you have so many areas. And fishing history can bite you, but could also be productive as well. But for me, I think a lot of my tournaments, like, I did the best, when I don't know the lake, or I go in blind somewhere, or, honestly, some of my best finishes have been in those type of situations.
Yeah, it's just applying knowledge, right? Like, you're like you it forces you to think and try to put the puzzle together, versus like, yeah, I always catch him here. I know the spots. I don't know. I think I see it so many times with on so many tournaments, especially when talking about national tours, with somebody from, so many people from outside state get into the top 10, and so many people from the locals one don't do great. But that's just my theory, and there's always the outliers, right? It's not like a written rule or a hard line on it. Like
Oh yeah.
there are circumstances where knowing the lake is actually um, beneficial to you. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I always find it interesting, and I think also when you're fishing, when you were used to a body of water, you have a good day on that body of water, and you think that's a great spot because you kind of got lazy out of it. Not you, but in general, all of us get like, all right, so I found this spot, I caught fish here. This is a great spot. Not knowing there's probably better areas of the lake, but because you did pretty good on that area of the lake, you're sticking to it. That's going to be your go-to spot. Whereas somebody that's never come to a lake doesn't is not burdened by that knowledge. It's just like, no, I have to find what is the best spot. And even
Hmm.
if you find a good spot, if you're pre-fishing, you're like, well, now I need to find a better spot to see if I should stick to that one.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's good advice. Once you find one spot, it's good to have a couple things up your sleeve just in case either, the wind changes or, maybe someone rolls in on your spot that you weren't expecting or, there's all sorts of different variables that can happen, but it's definitely good to have a couple spots in mind. And that's what I had on Amistad was two main areas. And then there was just a couple areas that I felt like I could go catch some fish in, but I just didn't think they were winning fish. But there, like I said, those two main big bluffs that I found were really productive, and I just stuck with those.
Charlie Sanders says a lot of the time for me when it's a lake, I know I don't switch things up or try a new area and bait as much. That's true. There
Yeah.
we go. And Charlie's very successful as what he's done at a young age. Thanks for joining in, Charlie, in the comment section. If I have any questions from anybody that's watching, feel free to put it on the comment section. We'll get them answered as far as we can due to with our knowledge. More so JR. That's the brains of the operation. What are you looking forward? What's your next tournament? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so we got a couple things coming up. So not this weekend, but next weekend, West Texas has their next event up at Possum Kingdom. I may make an appearance for that. I'm still on the fence. It's just so far for me down here. So I may do that one. If not, it'll definitely be Texas Bass Nation for Lake LBJ at the end of the month. But honestly, the most excited event I'm looking forward to is the Bassmasters on Caddo
Yep.
in April. So I'm really looking forward to that. Should be getting there like midweek that week to kind of scout a couple different areas out.
Are you going to do the Texas Bass Nation as well, or just the Bass?
No, I'm getting up there midweek, the week after that tournament. I can't stay out there all week, unfortunately. So I don't want to have to make two trips. So I'll probably come up Tuesday night and then fish Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the tournament Saturday, Sunday.
That was an interesting strategy by Duke, and assuming Duke had the final decision, maybe not, maybe it was a committee decision. Regardless, I thought it was an interesting decision to put. Typically when you have a national trail, what a lot of local trails do is they'll pair up with that tournament, right? It's like, all right, we'll have it the same day, or at least if it's a 1-day tournament, we'll have it on Saturday, and then people get to fish it and we get people out of state. But they actually had it on Saturday before. And the reason why I think it's so interesting is because, for example, if I want to prepare for that Texas Bass Nation tournament, I and I'm also fishing the Bassmaster, I cannot pre-fish for
Hmm.
the Bassmaster beef. Oh no, I cannot pre-fish for the Texas Bass Nation because the practice for the national trials starts on Saturday, meaning that I can't practice if I'm doing both. Like I would have to go in blind for the Texas Bass Nation and have the Texas Bass Nation be my pre-fishing. And I know a lot of anglers like yourself are like saying, hey, we don't always get national trails. If I can't pre-fish it or if I can't do the whole week, then you're forcing me to pick and choose whether
Right.
you do one or the other. But I know a lot of local anglers are saying this is great because we're not going to be bombarded by people from the outside of Texas are going to double dip and it's going to make it harder. Or that if they're not fishing the Bassmaster, then like, all right, I have an advantage because I can pre-fish it. And a lot of the anglers that are double dipping cannot pre-fish it. I thought it was interesting. We'll see what pays off. I'm assuming if the numbers are what they expecting it to are, this may be something that other trails do. But I don't know. I'm still on the fence of whether that's a great decision or not.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. It's an interesting decision. And maybe they're just thinking they're going to pull some of those guys that get in from the national scene, on that day to start pre-fishing for the national trail. And if they're already there pre-fishing, they might as well sign up for Bass Nation. But yeah, I don't know why they didn't coincide it. Maybe there was something that, we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm not criticizing. And
Yeah,
whoever made that,
absolutely.
whether Duke or something, I just find it interesting. Felipe Fernandez says, "What made you pick up a shaky head? You're like a chatterblade wizard, more like a top water frog wizard, but either ways, you're still good at both. I figured
Hmm.
you forced them to eat it. So, what do you think?"
Yeah, so I started with a chatterbait, actually the mini max specifically. That was the first bait I started throwing during pre-fishing that Friday before that morning, and I just wasn't really seeing everything that I was wanting to see, and I wasn't getting the reactions I thought in the areas like on points and stuff that I would get them. So I was like, let me put this down. And anytime I go to like a lake that has like those really steep drop offs, those bluffy walls, the shaky head is just what automatically comes into my mind because you know you can drag along those, you can parallel those banks, and you can drag all the high percentage areas. And in those situations, it seems like a lot of times on those lakes, it's really clear. So it's just a good idea to go with something finessey. I do think like, the tournament day, I could have probably had some more fish on a chatterbait reacting because it was windy and it was cloudy. But the bite was so good with that shaky head, I just didn't even want to put it down because I just kept getting bites. Um, that's kind of what my mindset was. I just didn't get the initial response that I figured I would get on pre-fishing morning for that chatterbait. So I put it down pretty early, to be honest. And once I seen those vertical drop offs, I wanted to drag along those, and I just picked up the shaky head.
And I didn't even thought about that when you mentioned it. Now that, and thank you, Felipe, for your question. That's a great question by Felipe because typically when you hear like, all right, it's windy, all right, throw a chatterbait, throw
Hmm.
a spinnerbait. Like you don't throw a finesse unless it's like bluebird skies, no wind. But you did kind of like the opposite of it. Like you went like the other way instead of like the blade, instead of like throwing a spinnerbait. Why? Well, you already kind of touched on it. Was it more like, yeah, they're not biting on the power fishing, even though it's windy? Let's just switch to that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really weird because I don't really throw an A rig that much either, but I got this wild hair like, hey, this presents a really good transitional bait, this time of year. So I picked up the A rig and started getting bites on it immediately, which was kind of different for me. And then, also just being able to recognize, the situation I was like with those steep drop offs and the bluff walls. I just felt like, for me, that shaky head was getting so many bites that I didn't want to do anything else, but also I just wasn't getting as many bites on a chatterbait, as I was on a shaky head. And I did pick it up throughout the day to keep it honest, thinking maybe I'll get a little bit bigger bite because something will come out and chase it. But I just never really had that thing take off. So I just kept with the shaky head and dragging the baits and just kind of slower presentation.
Pretty cool, man.
Hmm.
Pretty cool. That's the thing about what separates great anglers like yourself from the rest of it is like a lot of times we, and I include myself on this, we go like, well, like share knowledge. Hey, if it's like what we were talking about at the beginning, hey, clear water, don't use black and blue or don't use dark colors. That's wrong. Windy conditions, throw a spinnerbait. And not that one is kind of right. But when you talk about like we're fishing with the share knowledge and podcasts that we listen to or YouTube videos that we watch, whereas you is kind of like with your experience and so much time on your water and really it's in your DNA to bass fish, you kind of understand what is noise and what is actually like true tactics. And it's not just what's spread out on the internet or YouTube or TikTok videos or anything like that. Not that everything is wrong, but there's little subtleties between, even if it's windy, why would you go with a finesse instead of a spinnerbait kind of
Yeah,
thing?
exactly. Absolutely. I mean, it's just time on the water, and you kind of recognize these certain situations, and then if you do it for long enough, you just, you kind of know what to do when you get there. And that's what it was for me, like getting there Friday, seeing the beautiful scenery, seeing things come alive that morning, and seeing some bait fish pop in certain areas, especially at the mouths of these creeks and like the points and stuff. I just knew, man, okay, maybe they're not as far as long as I thought. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of activity out here versus at the back of the creeks. And after I figured that out, I really didn't go explore a whole lot of back of the creeks because I didn't want to run dead water. I feel like there's enough fish out on the main that I could run, and that's definitely what it was. I mean, they were out there for sure.
Yeah, and congratulations to him again, man. You like it seems that it doesn't matter whether it's grassy lake or a clear lake or stain lake or pre-spawning with the top water or finesse fishing, you always seem to find success and either win the tournament or get into uh, at least collect the check. So that speaks a lot about how much you apply yourself and you apply the knowledge and how much time you spent just working on your craft. So it's no surprise that the amount of success that you had and again, I know there's going to be a lot more coming into the future.
I hope so. I appreciate that too, and it's been a long time coming. And it's like I said, just time on the water, the more you do it, the more you learn, and you're able to know, kind of cut out a lot of time that you would spend on changing baits or running, think you got to make a run somewhere, or, just little things like that really play a factor in kayak fishing because we just can't get up and go 60 mile an hour down the lake. We have to maximize our time and run with a certain game plan.
Yeah, I mean, time efficiency on kayak tournaments is so important. Like you
Yes.
mentioned, it's like we were limited in the areas that we can visit, even with a motor compared to a boat. So you gotta you can't spend too much. That bait has to be on the water as much as possible.
Yep. I agree.
Well, JR, thank you so much, man. Before I let you go, for those that joining late, I know you have a business in rigging kayaks and actually
hmm
boats now. Um, Give it a shout out. Where can people find you? If somebody wants to rig their kayak, if somebody's, you know, kayak fell off the trailer or the car top and it's destroyed and seems like it's lost. I know you fixed some really, really interesting damaged kayaks. Where can people find you? Where can people contact you for rigging tips and actually rigging their kayaks and outfitting them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the owner, J Mox Kayak Rigging and Repair, right here in New Braunfels, Texas. I have my shop walking distance from where I live, so it's centrally located. And You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Google as well. All my contact info's out there, but I have a dedicated page on Facebook and Instagram, J Mox Kayak Rigging and Repair, and I post all my content, all my builds, repairs, stories of what's going on. So that's where you can find me. Feel free to send me, messages. I've also got my email and my phone number listed under the Google J Mox Kayak Rigging and Repair. So it's pretty easy to find me. But yeah, anything kayak related, whether it's, a big old hole in your boat or, something really elaborate where we're doing, live scope, dual screens, the motor build, everything, I can do all that. So right now I've been super busy just because the time of the year, everyone's wanting to get out there, get ready for tournaments. And we're doing a lot of builds over repairs right now. It seems like I'm just getting more builds, Garmin installs with the new force currents, which are really cool. And
Tax
just kind
refund
of
season. You gotta love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this is the time of year people are wanting to spend that money and get new toys. And hey, I'd be glad to help them out and get y'all rigged up. And also, feel free to reach out for any kind of like advice as far as like rigging tips, or if you need like a list of components for a certain build, or you got a certain motor in mind, I can tell you every single thing you need for the build from start to finish. That way you're not trying to figure it out as you go. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And then if you don't mind, I'll do a couple shout outs
Heck yeah,
as
man.
well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so first and foremost, all glory goes to God. Without Him, none of this would be possible for me.
Amen.
Um, so I had to say that first. Then also my wife Shiloh, she's without her, that definitely none of this would be possible. She's has the kids all taken care of throughout the times that I'm away, and I try to bring them as much as possible because I like for them to see the tournament aspect, and they've been to a handful of them, and they've seen the awards, and some of the success I've had. So that's been really cool to share that experience. It's one thing. It's hard to be away from the family, but if they can see the success and what you're putting into it, it makes it kind of full circle. So Big shout out to her. She's my best friend, my soulmate, love her. And yeah, Kistler rods. I know you've got a rod brand as well that you pitch on the company, but that's what I use is Kistler rods. I've been using them for 4 or 5 years now, and man, they're some of the best rods out there, locally made as well. If you're in the market for a different type of rod, as a kayak angler, we're really hard on gear, and the way I fish, particularly like boat flipping, frog fishing, flipping and pitching, close quarter fishing, those rods really hold up too. So if you're in the market for a different rod, reach out if you have any questions. So
there you go. You do the shout outs. Well, the only order that matters, 1 and 2, and you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to go for 1 and 2.
This is a guy that has won plenty of tournaments, people. You can tell he knows exactly who to thank first and second.
I got it down.
Got it down pat, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much, JR, for coming on the podcast. I'm sure you're going to have a bunch of other victories this year and next year and going forward. So I'm sure you'll be on the podcast pretty soon. Hope to get to see you. What is Caddo goes first, and then I'll probably see you in Caddo if I. Oh well, you're not gonna fish that one. So OHIV probably. Anything before OHIV that Texas Bass Nation?
LBJ, but that's the Central Division. You're probably not driving down here.
Maybe if I can stay with my sisters, I have to check it out.
Yeah, there you go. Other than that, it would be, are you fishing the Bassmasters Nationals for Caddo?
No, because. Yeah, no. Again, same thing. That's what we were talking about. Like because they put it on Saturday, there's going to be anglers like yourself. They're saying, "Well, no, I can't." And then I really want to put all my eggs in a basket on the Texas Bass. If they would have done it together, I would have fished both.
100%. Yeah.
I want to practice for Texas Bass Nation. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Do the Bassmasters if I pre-fish Texas Bass Nation? There, Bassmasters out.
And especially like if you're trying to qualify for, the state championship, obviously you're going to put all your eggs in the Texas Bass Nation. So I totally get it. So I won't see you there. Then I'll see you at Ivy probably for the double dip for West Texas and Texas Bass Nation. That's in May.
I want I'll double dip. Yeah.
I'll be double dipping there. Will you be at Brownwood in April?
I have to check my calendar. I think I have something in April. On that's the end of April, right?
I believe it's the end of April, and it's also another double dip, Texas Bass Nation and West Texas again, like last year.
I think I know I got it on the calendar, but I think that's one of those I had to negotiate it with the wife kind of thing.
I see. But well, I may see you there then, because I plan on being at that one as well.
All right. Well, hopefully, I'll donate you my end. If not, I'll just sell you the money.
There you go.
It's going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same effect.
Armando, thank you for having me. I appreciate being on here, dude. And, we'll do it again. Absolutely. It's been a blast.
Definitely. And for those out there listening, watching, remember you can follow us, Bass Kayak and Beers, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can also listen to our podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, every single podcast streaming platform. Again, if you're joining late, Advanced Kayak Angler, we have a episode dedicated to breaking down what we found about the Voya X Mosa 128. Both me and Peter Husser used it for 2 days in 2 different weather conditions. So we have a lengthy podcast talking about it. I also, hopefully, if I can finish editing tonight, I'll have tomorrow a YouTube video of kind of like a walkthrough on the water of the, again, Voya X is the brand Mosa 128. I think that's how you pronounce it, the kayak. It's debuting at not ICAST, at the Classic Expo. If you haven't heard about this kayak, be prepared because this is going to blow your mind. So excited about that kayak, man. Really do. So anyways, without further ado, thank you so much, everyone. As always, wear your PFD if you're going to be on the water. Peace out. Have a good night, weekend, everything.